Maria stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling as she held her 3-year-old daughter Sophia close to her chest. The bold red letters seemed to mock her as neighbors walked by, some offering sympathetic glances, while others hurried past, avoiding eye contact. She had 30 days to find the money or they would be homeless. The single mother had been working 2 jobs since her husband Carlos died in a construction accident 8 months ago. Every morning, at 5, she would drop Sophia at her elderly neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, then rush to her first job cleaning offices downtown. By noon, she would race across town to her second job waiting tables at a small diner, barely making enough to cover rent, utilities, and Sophia's basic needs. But last week, the office building where she cleaned had been sold, and the new owners brought in their own cleaning company. Half her income disappeared overnight. The diner job alone wouldn't cover the $800 rent, and the landlord had already been patient for 2 months while she struggled to make partial payments. Maria folded the notice and slipped it into her purse, not wanting Sophia to see her tears. She knocked on Mrs. Rodriguez's door, grateful that the kind woman never asked for payment for watching Sophia, knowing Maria couldn't afford childcare. The older woman took one look at Maria's face and immediately opened her arms. That evening, after Sophia fell asleep on their second-hand couch, Maria sat at her small kitchen table surrounded by bills and rejection letters from job applications. She had applied to dozens of positions, but most required skills she didn't have or hours that wouldn't work with Sophia's schedule. Her savings account showed a balance of $43. The apartment felt suffocating as she looked around at their few belongings. Sophia's toys were scattered on the worn carpet, most of them gifts from Carlos before he died. His construction helmet still sat on the shelf by the door, a painful reminder of dreams they had shared about buying their own home someday. Maria picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts, wondering if there was anyone she could call for help. Her pride had kept her from reaching out to family members who had their own struggles. Her sister lived 3 states away with 4 children of her own, and her parents had already helped with Carlos's funeral expenses, draining their retirement savings. She opened her laptop and began searching job listings again, this time expanding her radius to include positions further from home. A posting for a hotel housekeeper caught her attention. The pay was better than the diner, and they offered benefits after 90 days. But it was 30 miles away, and her old car barely made it across town without breaking down. As she filled out the online application, Sophia stirred in her sleep, mumbling "Daddy," before settling back down. Maria's heart broke a little more, knowing her daughter still waited for Carlos to come home each evening. The 3-year-old didn't understand why Mommy cried so much now or why they ate rice and beans almost every night. The application required references, and Maria realized how isolated she had become since Carlos's death. She had been so focused on survival that she hadn't maintained many friendships. She listed Mrs. Rodriguez, her former supervisor at the cleaning company, and the diner owner who had been understanding about her situation. By midnight, Maria had applied to 7 different jobs, each one requiring a leap of faith she wasn't sure she could make. Some were in different cities, others required skills she would need to learn quickly. But with 29 days left on the eviction notice, she had to try everything. She closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there was an opportunity that could change their lives, but finding it felt impossible when every day was consumed with simply surviving until the next. The weight of responsibility for Sophia's future pressed down on her shoulders as she prepared for another sleepless night of worry and planning. 3 days passed without any responses to Maria's job applications. Each morning brought the same routine of checking her email, hoping to find even one interview request among the automated rejection messages. The stress was taking its toll on her body, and dark circles formed under her eyes as sleep became increasingly elusive. On Thursday morning, her car wouldn't start. Maria turned the key repeatedly, listening to the engine sputter and die. She rested her forehead against the steering wheel, feeling defeat wash over her. Without transportation, she couldn't get to the diner, and missing shifts meant losing the only income she had left. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared at her window, tapping gently. The elderly woman had heard the car struggling and came to investigate. When Maria explained the situation through tears, Mrs. Rodriguez insisted on calling her nephew Roberto, who worked as a mechanic. Within an hour, he arrived with his toolkit, refusing payment but accepting Maria's promise to cook him dinner once she got back on her feet. Roberto diagnosed the problem as a dead battery and worn spark plugs, repairs that would cost $200 with parts and labor. Maria's heart sank knowing she didn't have the money. But Roberto surprised her by offering to fix it for free if she would help his girlfriend Elena with English lessons 2 evenings a week. Elena was preparing for her citizenship test and struggling with the language barrier. The arrangement felt like a small miracle, and Maria gratefully accepted. By afternoon, her car was running again, and she made it to her diner shift with minutes to spare. The owner, Mr. Chen, noticed her puffy eyes and asked if she was all right. When Maria hesitantly mentioned her housing situation, he listened without judgment, then disappeared into his office. 20 minutes later, Mr. Chen returned with a proposal that surprised Maria. His wife needed help with their catering business, preparing food for weekend events and small parties. The work was irregular but paid well, and she could sometimes bring Sophia along if the events were family-friendly. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it offered hope for additional income. That weekend, Maria found herself in Mrs. Chen's kitchen at 6 in the morning, learning to prepare appetizers for a graduation party. Her hands moved quickly as she rolled. Spring rolls and arranged vegetables, grateful for skills her mother had taught her years ago. Sophia played quietly in the corner with coloring books, occasionally helping by sorting napkins or counting plates. The graduation party was Maria's first catering event, and she felt nervous arriving at the beautiful suburban home. But Mrs. Chen guided her through the setup process, showing her how to arrange platters and keep food at proper temperatures. The host family complimented the food throughout the event, and Maria felt a spark of pride she hadn't experienced in months. As they cleaned up afterward, Mrs. Chen handed Maria an envelope containing her payment for the day, $150. It was more than she made in 2 full shifts at the diner, and tears of relief filled her eyes. For the first time since receiving the eviction notice, she felt like maybe they could survive this crisis. On the drive home, Sophia chatted excitedly about the big house with the swimming pool and the nice lady who gave her cookies. Maria realized her daughter had been happier today than she had been in weeks, and she began to wonder if there might be opportunities she hadn't considered before. That evening, Roberto's girlfriend Elena arrived for her first English lesson. Maria discovered that Elena was incredibly intelligent and motivated, working 2 jobs while studying for her citizenship test. As they practiced pronunciation and reviewed vocabulary, Elena shared her own story of coming to America with nothing but hope and determination. Their conversation continued long after the lesson ended, and Maria found herself opening up about her fears and struggles. Elena listened with understanding, sharing practical advice about finding resources and opportunities in their community. She mentioned a women's support group at the local community center that provided job training and networking opportunities. For the first time in months, Maria went to bed feeling like she wasn't completely alone in her fight for survival. The eviction notice still sat on her kitchen table, but now it felt less like a death sentence and more like a challenge she might actually overcome. Small connections were forming around her, creating a network of support she hadn't realized was possible. Maria walked into the community center with Sophia's hand clutched tightly in hers, feeling nervous about attending the women's support group Elena had recommended. The building smelled like coffee and fresh paint, and colorful posters covered the walls advertising various programs and services. She had never asked for help from strangers before, and her pride made each step feel heavy. The meeting room contained a circle of mismatched chairs where 8 women of different ages and backgrounds sat talking quietly. A warm woman with graying hair named Patricia welcomed Maria and showed her to a seat while Sophia settled nearby with a box of toys kept specifically for children during meetings. As the women shared their stories, Maria realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. There was Jennifer, a recent divorce trying to re-enter the workforce after 15 years, and Sandra, an immigrant like Elena who was starting her own house-cleaning business. Each woman faced different challenges, but they all understood the weight of responsibility and the fear of failure. When it was Maria's turn to speak, her voice shook as she explained her situation. The eviction notice now had 18 days left, and despite the catering work with Mrs. Chen, she was still far from having enough money for rent. The group listened without judgment, and several women nodded in recognition of similar experiences. Patricia mentioned a local program that provided emergency rental assistance for families facing eviction. There was paperwork involved and a waiting list, but it could potentially cover up to 3 months of rent for qualifying families. Maria felt a flicker of hope, though she tried not to get too excited in case it didn't work out. After the meeting, Sandra approached Maria with a business proposition. Her cleaning business was growing, and she needed a reliable partner for larger jobs. The pay was better than the diner, and the schedule would be more flexible around Sophia's needs. Sandra had heard about Maria's situation and wanted to help while also solving her own staffing problem. That weekend, Maria worked her first cleaning job with Sandra at a large office complex. The work was familiar, but Sandra's approach was different from her previous employer. She treated clients with professionalism and took pride in the quality of their work. She taught Maria about building relationships with customers and how to spot opportunities for additional services like organizing or deep cleaning. Between cleaning jobs, Maria had been working on her application for rental assistance. The process required documentation of Carlos's death, proof of her income, and letters from potential employers. Mrs. Chen wrote a glowing recommendation describing Maria's reliability and skill in the catering business, while Mr. Chen from the diner provided confirmation of her employment history. Sandra also offered to write a letter confirming Maria's new position with her cleaning service. As they worked together, Sandra shared her own story of starting the business after her husband abandoned their family 5 years earlier. She had built it from nothing, relying on word-of-mouth referrals and exceptional service to compete with larger companies. The rental assistance office was crowded when Maria submitted her application, with dozens of families in similar situations, waiting for help. The caseworker, a tired-looking woman named Ms. Harrison, explained that the program received 3 times more applications than they could fund. Maria would hear back within 2 weeks, but she should prepare for the possibility of rejection. Walking out of that office, Maria felt the familiar knot of anxiety in her stomach. But this time, she also felt something else: determination. Even if the rental assistance didn't come through, she had options now. Sandra's cleaning business was growing, the catering work provided additional income, and the support group had connected her with resources she never knew existed. That evening, Elena arrived for her English lesson with exciting news. She had passed her citizenship test and would be sworn in as an American citizen the following month. Her success felt like a victory for everyone who had supported her, and Maria realized how much their friendship had grown to mean to her. They celebrated with ice cream, and Sophia clapped excitedly, even though she didn't fully understand what they were celebrating. As they practiced English conversation, Elena mentioned that Roberto had been asking about Maria's car. He was concerned about its condition and wanted to do some preventive maintenance before it broke down again. The kindness of people who barely knew her continued to surprise Maria, making her realize that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, but a way to build community. The eviction notice now had 12 days remaining, but Maria no longer felt hopeless. She had created a support network developed new sources of income, and applied for assistance that could solve her immediate housing crisis. Whether or not the rental assistance came through, she was no longer facing her challenges alone. The call came on a Tuesday morning while Maria was helping Sophia get ready for her day with Mrs. Rodriguez. Ms. Harrison's voice was professional, but not unkind as she delivered the news that changed everything. Maria's application for rental assistance had been approved, and they would cover 3 months of her rent while she stabilized her employment situation. Maria sank into a chair, phone still pressed to her ear as Ms. Harrison explained the next steps. She would need to bring additional documentation to their office by Friday, and the funds would be sent directly to her landlord within 10 business days. The relief was so overwhelming that Maria couldn't speak, and Ms. Harrison had to ask twice if she was still on the line. After hanging up, Maria looked at Sophia, who was watching her with curious eyes. For months, her daughter had seen her cry from stress and worry. This time, Maria's tears were different, and she scooped Sophia into her arms, spinning around their small living room while explaining that they wouldn't have to move after all. The news spread quickly through her support network. Mrs. Rodriguez cried with joy, remembering her own struggles as a young immigrant mother decades earlier. Sandra offered to drive Maria to the assistance office to complete the paperwork, insisting that such important documents required safe transportation. Even Mr. Chen at the diner smiled when Maria shared the news, promising to make Sophia's favorite, dumplings to celebrate. But even with the immediate housing crisis resolved, Maria knew she couldn't become complacent. The rental assistance was temporary, designed to give families time to become self-sufficient. She needed to use these 3 months wisely, building her income to a level that could sustain them long-term without assistance. Sandra's cleaning business continued to grow, and she offered Maria a partnership arrangement rather than just employment. They would split the profits from new clients that Maria brought in, giving her an incentive to help expand the business. Maria had been hesitant about sales, but Sandra taught her that it was simply about showing people the value of their excellent service. Their first joint sales call was at a small medical office where the current cleaning service had been unreliable. Maria felt nervous as they walked into the waiting room, but Sandra's confidence was contagious. They spoke with the office manager about their flexible scheduling, attention to detail, and competitive rates. By the end of the meeting, they had secured a contract for twice-weekly cleaning. The success gave Maria confidence to approach other potential clients. She started noticing businesses with dirty windows or cluttered waiting areas, thinking about how she and Sandra could improve them. Her natural eye for detail, developed through years of cleaning, became an asset in identifying opportunities. Mrs. Chen's catering business was also expanding, and she began relying on Maria for more than just food preparation. Maria's organizational skills and calm demeanor made her valuable for managing events, coordinating with vendors, and ensuring everything ran smoothly. She was becoming less of a helper and more of a partner in the business. At Sophia's daycare pickup one afternoon, Maria overheard another parent complaining about finding reliable childcare for weekend events. An idea sparked in her mind, and she approached the woman to offer her services. Between her catering experience and her mothering skills, she could provide childcare at events while Mrs. Chen handled the food service. The first childcare assignment was at a wedding reception where Maria watched 6 children ranging in age, from 2 to 10. She organized quiet activities for the younger ones and helped the older children participate in the reception festivities. The bride's sister was so impressed that she immediately asked for Maria's contact information for future events. Word spread quickly among the parent network about Maria's reliable childcare services. She began booking weekend gigs that paid well and often included meals and tips from grateful parents. Sophia sometimes came along to family-friendly events, playing with the other children while Maria worked. Elena's citizenship ceremony was a joyful celebration that brought their entire informal support network together. Mrs. Rodriguez, Roberto, Sandra, and the Chens all attended, creating a chosen family around Elena's achievement. During the reception afterward, Elena pulled Maria aside to share that she had been accepted to nursing school and would need someone to take over the apartment she shared with two roommates. The apartment was larger than Maria's current place, in a better neighborhood, and actually cost less because of the roommate arrangement. Elena's roommates were also working women who understood the challenges of single motherhood. The timing felt like another small miracle, allowing Maria to improve their living situation while maintaining stability. As Maria looked around at the faces celebrating Elena's success, she realized how much her own life had transformed in just a few weeks. She had gone from facing homelessness alone to being part of a community that supported each other through challenges and victories alike. The rental assistance had bought her time, but the relationships and opportunities she had built would sustain her long after that assistance ended. 6 months after the eviction notice that had nearly destroyed her world, Maria stood in the kitchen of her new apartment, preparing breakfast for Sophia while mentally organizing her day. The rental assistance had ended 2 months ago, but she was now earning enough from her multiple income streams to pay rent comfortably while even saving a small amount each month. The cleaning partnership with Sandra had evolved into something more substantial than either of them had initially imagined. They now employed 3 part-time workers and serviced over 40 regular clients throughout the city. Maria had discovered a talent for business operations, handling scheduling, customer relations, and quality control, while Sandra focused on training new employees and developing specialized services. Their biggest breakthrough came when they landed a contract with a chain of urgent care clinics that needed daily cleaning services. The steady, reliable income from that contract allowed them to invest in better equipment and uniforms, elevating their professional image and attracting higher-paying clients. Maria had learned that success in business often came from solving problems consistently rather than trying to find one perfect solution. Mrs. Chen's catering business had also grown significantly, with Maria now managing most of the event coordination and client communications. She had developed relationships with wedding planners, corporate event coordinators, and party venues throughout the region. Her calm professionalism and attention to detail made her invaluable to clients planning important celebrations. The child care services had become unexpectedly profitable as word spread through social media and parent networks. Maria found herself booked most weekends, sometimes managing multiple events by training and supervising other reliable caregivers. She had created a small network of women who could provide professional childcare services at events, splitting the fees while ensuring consistent quality. But perhaps the most significant change was Sophia's happiness and security. The 3-year-old had blossomed in their new apartment, making friends with neighborhood children and showing none of the anxiety that had marked her behavior during their housing crisis. She chattered constantly about her day with Mrs. Rodriguez, her weekend adventures at various events, and her excitement about starting preschool in the fall. Maria had been able to afford a quality preschool program for Sophia, something that had seemed impossible just months earlier. The school offered early childhood education that would prepare Sophia for kindergarten while allowing Maria to work during regular business hours. The investment in Sophia's education felt like investing in both of their futures. The women's support group at the community center had become a central part of Maria's life, not just as someone seeking help, but as someone who could offer assistance to others facing similar challenges. She often shared job leads with group members, provided references for women looking to start cleaning businesses, and offered practical advice about managing multiple income sources. When a new member named Carmen joined the group, recently widowed with twin toddlers, Maria saw her own story reflected back at her. Carmen was facing eviction and struggling with the same feelings of isolation and desperation that Maria remembered so clearly. Without hesitation, Maria offered Carmen part-time work with the cleaning service and connected her with Mrs. Chen for potential catering opportunities. Roberto had become like an older brother to Maria, maintaining her car and refusing payment while teaching her basic automotive maintenance. His girlfriend Elena was thriving in nursing school, and their small circle had expanded to include other immigrants and single parents who supported each other through various challenges and celebrations. The anniversary of Carlos's death arrived, with less pain than Maria had anticipated. Sophia had begun to understand that Daddy wasn't coming back, but she also understood that she was loved and safe. Maria visited Carlos's grave with fresh flowers and a photo of Sophia starting preschool, sharing the news of their stability and success. Standing at his graveside, Maria realized she was no longer the frightened, overwhelmed woman who had received that eviction notice. She had discovered strength she didn't know she possessed, and built a life that honored Carlos's memory while creating new possibilities for their daughter's future. The grief would always be part of her story, but it no longer defined her entire existence. That evening, Sandra called with news that would change their business trajectory significantly. A major hospital system was soliciting bids for comprehensive cleaning services across their network of facilities. The contract would be worth more than all their current clients combined, requiring them to hire additional staff and expand their operations considerably. Maria felt a familiar flutter of anxiety about taking such a big risk, but it was tempered now by confidence earned through months of successful problem-solving. She and Sandra spent hours that night creating a business plan, calculating costs, and discussing whether they were ready for such rapid growth. The scared woman who had once seen only obstacles now saw opportunities and had the skills to evaluate them rationally. As she tucked Sophia into bed that night, her daughter asked if they would ever have to move again. Maria was able to honestly answer that their home was secure and their future looked bright. Sophia smiled and drifted off to sleep, surrounded by toys and books that Maria could now afford to buy new rather than search for at thrift stores. 2 years had passed since that terrifying eviction notice, and Maria barely recognized the woman she had become. Standing in the conference room of regional hospital systems, she adjusted her professional blazer and reviewed the presentation materials one final time before the board meeting that would determine their company's future. The cleaning service she and Sandra had built together now employed 15 people and held contracts with medical facilities, office buildings, and event venues throughout 3 counties. The hospital contract they had pursued months earlier had been awarded to them after a competitive bidding process, and their success with that account had led to additional opportunities they never could have imagined. But Maria's transformation went far beyond financial success. The frightened single mother who had once hidden behind shame and isolation had become a confident businesswoman and community leader. She served on the advisory board of the community center where she had first found help, mentoring other women facing similar challenges while advocating for expanded support services. Sophia, now 5 years old, was thriving in kindergarten and showed remarkable resilience and empathy that reflected the journey they had traveled together. She often helped at community events, naturally gravitating toward other children whose families were struggling, offering her toys or simply sitting quietly beside them. Maria recognized in her daughter a strength and compassion that had been forged through adversity. The apartment they had moved into through Elena's connection had become a true home, decorated with artwork Sophia created at school and photos documenting their growing circle of friends and achievements. Maria had been able to purchase furniture piece by piece, replacing the second-hand items that had defined their previous life with quality pieces chosen for comfort and durability. Elena had graduated from nursing school with honors and secured a position at the same hospital where Maria's company provided cleaning services. Their friendship had deepened through shared struggles and mutual success, creating a bond that felt more like sisterhood than casual acquaintance. Roberto had proposed to Elena, and they asked Maria to stand up for them at their wedding. The women's support group had evolved into a formal non-profit organization, with Maria serving as treasurer and helping to secure grants for emergency assistance and job training programs. They had helped over 200 women transition from crisis to stability. with many going on to start their own businesses or return to careers they had abandoned during difficult periods. Mrs. Rodriguez, now in her 80s, had become Sophia's honorary grandmother and Maria's trusted advisor. Despite her age, she remained sharp and involved, often providing wisdom that helped Maria navigate complex business decisions or personal challenges. Her apartment had become a gathering place for their extended chosen family, filled with the sounds of laughter and multiple languages as friendships transcended cultural boundaries. The catering partnership with Mrs. Chen had evolved as well, with Maria now managing a full event planning service that coordinated everything from intimate family gatherings to corporate conferences. Her reputation for reliability and attention to detail had made her the preferred choice for discerning clients who valued professionalism and creativity. On quiet evenings, Maria sometimes pulled out the old eviction notice she had kept as a reminder of how quickly circumstances could change. The paper was worn now, and the urgent red letters that had once symbolized terror now represented the turning point that had transformed her life. She kept it not as a source of pain, but as evidence of her own resilience and growth. Sophia had begun asking questions about her father, and Maria found she could now share memories of Carlos with joy rather than overwhelming grief. She told stories about his dreams for their family, his pride in becoming a father, and his belief that hard work could overcome any obstacle. Sophia treasured these stories and often declared that she would make Daddy proud by being strong like Mommy. The business partnership with Sandra had taught Maria lessons about trust, communication, and shared responsibility that extended far beyond their professional relationship. They had learned to navigate disagreements, divide responsibilities according to their strengths, and support each other through personal challenges while maintaining their business focus. As Maria prepared to present their expansion proposal to the hospital board, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The woman who had once felt powerless in the face of circumstances beyond her control now understood that strength came not from avoiding difficulty, but from developing the skills and relationships necessary to overcome it. The presentation went smoothly, with board members asking thoughtful questions about their quality control procedures, employee training programs, and capacity for handling increased volume. Maria answered confidently, drawing on 2 years of experience managing complex operations and solving problems creatively. Walking out of that boardroom, Maria felt the same sense of possibility that had begun to emerge during those first weeks of building her support network. But now that possibility was grounded in proven capability and surrounded by relationships that could weather future challenges. She had learned that adversity, while painful, could also be transformative when met with determination and community support. That evening, as she tucked Sophia into bed in their secure, comfortable home, Maria realized that their story had become one of triumph, not because they had avoided further difficulties, but because they had developed the strength and resources to face whatever challenges might come. The scared, isolated woman who had faced eviction alone had become someone who could not only solve her own problems, but help others overcome theirs as well.